I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. We have assignment for request for council actions. We have 18172 budget amendments, 18173 increased expenditure for PO 2018-059 Cocosing Street Department, 18174 resolution opposing passage of State of Ohio Issue 1, Chief Kinney, 18175 rezone city-owned property 137 West Liberty Street, 18176 resolution accepting amounts and rates Budget Commission, 18177, fiscal year 16 CHIP rehabilitation, 44 Circle Drive, 18178, amending salaries and benefits code, convert part-time ED marketing associate to full-time ED marketing manager, 18179, RFPs, drug screening and related professional services, 18180, state bid purchase 2018 case Super N loader backhoe for the water department, 18181, amending ordinance 12417 and salaries and benefits code intensive supervision probation grant. 18172, we have budget amendments. The first one we have is 18141 for the fire department staffing. Chief?
Thank you. As you recall, in 16, we got the Montville contract and they earmarked $100,000 for the extra staffing in the evening. Last year, we basically copied their contract from Medina Township and again earmarking $100,000 for staffing for the additional response district and the call volume. I believe it was in September of 16, I come and asked for, I did get $100,000 that first year of the contract. There was a lot of concern about carry forward and that, so I did not bring any, request anything for 17 or 18, but the carry forward, everything's depleted now, so I'm kind of, I need some, some money from the contracts for the staffing to complete the year.
And it's, the staffing money goes into 107 then, the other account.
Yeah, operating the budget line, the salary line.
Yeah, so, okay, so that the money goes, well, you got two accounts, so is a capital account one of them?
307 is the capital stuff, and 107 is the operating.
So the money's going into the 307, or is it?
107 for the salary line.
And we get, what was that amount again? You said we get 250 a year, right? Is that
230 a year.
230 a year from each of them.
from each?
And of that, 100 of each was supposed to be set aside for staffing
Right,
numbers.
right.
But we haven't done it for the last 2 years, so that's
Right.
why we're asking for the 250.
Where did that money go? I'm just trying to figure out in my mind again. When we get it from the townships, what account does it go into?
Well, we
It goes
have-
into 107.
Yeah, have you transferred into the 107 until it's appropriated.
Until we appropriate it?
Yes, sir.
So it all goes into the 107 then? Just trying to figure it out.
Good.
Move to approve. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2018-042 reimbursement for tree damage. Who gets this one?
I can take it.
Chance.
Okay, Jan.
There was a tree on Bragg's Landing that was ran over by a car, and this was the money that we submitted an invoice to the insurance company, and they mailed us a check. This is to put it in land improvements so we can buy a replacement.
Move to approve. Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2018-043 sports field maintenance. Jansen.
This is just moving money from our salaries line to cover maintenance of equipment. We depleted our budget for that line for this year due to ongoing repairs to our mowers, ball diamond groomers, and so on.
Okay.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2018-044 police equipment. Chief? Oh, no, Chief's not here.
This is you, but.
Oh, who is it? Oh. Keith.
You guys had talked about this purchase, we send on the appropriation for it, so.
Yeah, just
Move the
moving
radios.
the money from the one account, looks like salaries to the equipment account.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2018-045 CDC donations for the 2019 Visitors Guide.
The donation received, we need appropriation to be able to spend it.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, 2018-046 bicentennial sales.
Very similar to last one, we sold bricks, we need appropriation to spend it.
Are these all just bricks, or is there some other stuff in here? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure this one is all bricks.
I think it's all correct.
Okay.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we go to 18173, the increase of PO 2018-0459 for Cocosing for the Streets Department. Nino?
Thank you, Mr. President. Provisional PO was issued in January of 18 here for $15,000. We're asking an increase by $5,000 more to get us through the end of the year for asphalt material.
Okay.
Move to approve. Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. 18-174, resolution opposing passage of State Ohio issue number 1. Where?
So I'll take this. The chief is not here, and I requested him to submit this. In your packets are some changes that would occur should this issue 1 pass on the November 6th ballot. And we think from a public safety standpoint, as well as the related crime that goes along with abusing drugs, such as robberies and thefts and harm to others, frauds, that this is not the proper method. It's also a constitutional amendment, as opposed to how things like this generally occur. In fact, they occurred not too long ago, where they reduced some of the drug offenses to felony 5s, 4s, and 3s, so there was not either a chance of jail or a preponderance for jail. And that was done through the state legislature, which is the normal way of handling something like this, as opposed to changing the state constitution. And as a result, I respectfully ask the council take a position. Brunswick just passed this yesterday, it was in the paper. Their city council as well. They're asking the Board of County Commissioners to oppose it. Almost every law enforcement, public safety agency in the state is not in opposition to it.
Yep. Any questions on it? I think that's gonna, the problem that I see with it is it's gonna cause additional costs for the city, and I can see issues rising out of it. I don't know how much of a partisan issue it is. It probably is a partisan issue, but I don't think it's good for at least our community, unless people think it's okay.
Well, I agree with you that it's not a good thing for our city, or any city, especially the backlog it's going to cause in the lower courts such as ours, and take up space where, we're currently, in some cases, pretty well backed up. The costs will be high. I agree.
Any other questions?
Is it though partly, could you, like the mayor said, it should be done by the legislature and then be done as a constitutional amendment, is the approach that was taken to do this, to do it as a constitutional amendment because any way probably to change the structure that we have now in enforcement probably wouldn't pass through the legislature? Is that probably the reason it was done this way?
Not my opinion of over 30 years here, when they did, it was called Senate Bill 2, where they restructured the entire criminal justice code and reduced a number of things, either from higher felonies to lower felonies. They created the whole felony 5. It used to be 1s through 4, and it created a whole new lower level for felony 5s. And that worked well. And then of late, because of some of the addiction issues, they then reclassified some of the drug possession and smaller amounts, not as much the trafficking, but smaller amounts, and as well as the marijuana possession, to essentially decriminalize it in the state of Ohio if you're not trafficking it. So it seems like each time these issues have arose, the state legislature has adequately addressed it, in my opinion.
But do you think that the methods that we use in enforcement and incarceration have been successful? I mean, if you look at, I guess when we've looked over particularly in very recent times, over the widespread use of drugs and the harm that they've caused and the death and whatever, it doesn't seem like we've been very successful, in the methods that we've used. In 1971, I think it was 1971, when Richard Nixon announced the war on drugs. It was a war on drugs. And from that point forward, really, with the initially, no drugs were illegal up until about 1890. And as the evolution or the time went by, then more were classified as not legal for anything beyond medicinal uses. But when you look at it over the years, it seems like we have not really, the number of people that are have addictions and are using drugs that aren't legal. It doesn't seem like we've really made a great headway, with the methods that we've used. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, with all due respect. I mean, I understand the issue about doing it as a constitutional, changing the Constitution. But I remember that John Ehrlichman was Richard Nixon's domestic advisor when he started the war on drugs. And later, when he was interviewed, after Nixon was gone, he admitted that they launched the war on drugs because he couldn't make war protesters or black people illegal, but he could go after them, for drugs. And seems to me when you look at the issue historically, we haven't been as progressive as some places in kind of, this is an addiction, and then this level over here and this usage and this drug, these are things that are really harmful, and selling certain amounts and the production, those things are illegal. And so I guess just to close up here, I'm not sure how successful we've been in whatever methods we've used since 1971 to stem the use of illegal drugs.
Well, I would.
But from your perspective as a police chief, I know you have a more intimate knowledge, like locally, than I would.
When I would concur with you that we're not making a lot of headway, whether we're putting people in drugs or in prisons, or having them charged with a serious offense that's on their record. But in the same respect, these people who are addicted and can't get themselves off of the drugs are committing an unusual amount of crime because they need that drug so badly that they're stealing from their parents, stealing from their neighbors, stealing from their employers, on and on it goes. So I've kind of used my time in law enforcement to just try to cause a pause in that relationship, because the court has authority to say, we're not going to put you in the county jail, we're not going to set you in prison, but we're going to drug test you weekly or monthly, and you're going to have to follow these rules. And Judge Collier has been very successful, in fact recognized by the state of Ohio, for no grant dollars at all, but just him meeting every week with these folks and using kind of a peer model to have people get into sobriety that haven't been for 30, 40 years, and let them realize that there is a life without drugs and or alcohol combined. Now I also serve, that whole side is from the public safety. I did 8 years on the Adam board, was the chair for 2 years, and I'm back now because after 8 years of term I'm out, so I had to get out for a year or two. Now I'm back on again, and I believe that our county is doing a great deal in a number of areas with recovery, with peer recovery, with pro-social activities. And so you have the law enforcement dealing with their side of it, but then you have other folks that have been through addiction, have recovered, and are willing to help out and reach out. And so I think those two things running together, but sometimes we have to simply protect society from these folks who are causing harm and unrest and uncivility, in our community. That's part of my responsibility too.
Sure. I appreciate your response, and as I've said before, it's good to have you here because you have a good grasp on most of these, on these issues that I think most folks in your position would not have.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to echo what the mayor said about our county. I do think that the county has, versus some of our surrounding counties have taken a step above what is recognized throughout the state and the country of trying to deal with this. I look at this legislation or proposed legislation as putting the cart before the horse, statewide I'm talking about. I do agree, whether it be liberal or conservative politicians that say that our prisons are overcrowded with people that are addicted. True. But for the very reason that you said, we don't have, nationwide, we don't have a lot of choice. I'm not a proponent of throwing money at problems every time, but I do believe until we do nationally recognize that addiction is a disease, just like cancer, and that we should be, insurance companies should be recognizing that and putting more dollars towards that, then I would support reduction in certain, and I understand what you're saying, that people have to be, you have to protect our society from criminals, but a lot of times the reason that they are criminals is because they're addicted, and in our county, as you mentioned, Judge Collier and the Adam Board has done a great job with trying to help our county with local dollars of assisting people, but it is a crisis. Whether it be the opioid crisis or an alcohol crisis, it is a crisis. And in my lifetime of working in pre-hospital care, when I first started 100 years ago, insurance companies did pay. They did have inpatient facilities, and not in our county, but in surrounding counties. Every hospital had detox and rehab and treatment for people that were addicted, no matter what they were addicted to. But within a 10 or 15 year period, and because of the insurance companies, it's expensive. A lot of times you don't see a tangible outcome. It's like that cancer. You can cure cancer in a lot of cases, but it's hard to actually come out and say, well, yeah, we've cured this addiction, because it's a lifetime struggle. But until we nationally start recognize that as a disease, we're constantly going to be seeing. And not saying they're wrong. I agree with what you're saying, but I don't see the problem being solved until we recognize this is a true disease and treat it as such. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Back when I was with LTV, to dovetail in with what the mayor was saying, being the youngest guy there, I was allowed to handle the drug and alcohol cases. And in 2 of the cases that I handled, there were people who came and sought out the rehabilitation avenue solely to stay out of jail, because they were at that point there that the next time they got caught, they were going to jail. I think if we reduce the penalties, we could lose some of those people. Are we going to catch everybody? No. Are we going to catch those people who still have a bit of a conscience and realize they don't want to go to jail and spend time there? I think reducing this, we're going to miss those people. I think if we keep things as they are, we got a better chance of catching and keeping some of those people, maybe get them on rehabilitation and recovery.
All right, any questions?
I'll make a motion that we consider a resolution opposing the passage of State of Ohio Issue 1.
Second.
Further discussion?
You may want to add the emergency clause.
Oh, because it's election is in
The
November?
election's in November, yes.
I'll amend
I'm sorry, I forgot.
my motion to include the emergency clause.
I second it.
We actually could pass, that next time, and it won't take effect 30 days, which will be after the election.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 18175, rezone city-owned property, 137 West Liberty Street from PF to C2.
Yes,
Jonathan.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. This is a project brought to the planning commission by city staff, city administration. It is the lot that is being created at the frontage, the north side of Liberty, the 100 block of West Liberty, just to the west of Sully's. It's the 140 by 80 foot lot that is being created as part of the a redevelopment potential. The council and has passed an ordinance to transfer the land to the CIC when that comes about. This is basically to help tee up the RFP for the project development. So, as you all know, this has been a long time part of, mostly part of a public parking lot. So it's been zoned PF since we've had the PF zoning district. This would now need to be C2 to kind of be amenable to that redevelopment project. So that's the C2. At the September 13th Planning Commission meeting, this was presented. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning to the City Council. So now it is in front of you in your RCA packets. You have the Planning Commission resolution, the Planning Commission packet, and the draft Planning Commission minutes. So as a rezoning, this requires a public hearing in front of the City Council. That requires a 30-day minimum notice period. So, probably at the and anticipate having a public hearing at the November 13th planning city council meeting to go through the rezoning. So that's pretty much it.
All right, I don't think we voted. Anybody have any questions for Jonathan?
Anybody wants to have any comments or anything?
Nope, I think we're all on board. I think it's a good idea. We've been working on it for years. Maybe all on board.
I hope we're on board.
We've been working on it for a while.
It's kind of late.
Yes, all right, well, there we go.
I'd like
Okay.
to put it somewhere else.
18176, accept amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission. Keith?
Thank you. This is an annual thing that we have to do to, with regard to property tax. We have requested the emergency clause because we are required to send this back to the auditor's office by October 31st. You'll note they didn't send it to us till September 26th, so obviously we're gonna have to have an emergency clause to be able to turn that around. And that's typical too. They are able to extend our time to October 31st, and then we have a month, basically a month to get it back. This was all, most of the information here was all in the tax budget. I don't know if there's any questions. I'd be happy to field those, but.
Nope. Any questions?
I asked you earlier, but didn't get an answer on the other sources. The third column that you have there.
It's everything but property tax.
Okay.
Because the state budget law is heavily focused on property tax, which is why they have property tax in its own column, but then everything else goes in other sources, income tax, any fees we charge, anything else.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 18177, fiscal year 16, chip rehabilitation 44 Circle Drive. Jonathan?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. This is a private rehabilitation under our current CHIP program grant, which is coming to the end here at the end of the month, end of the year. So this is one of the few remaining ones. $28,000 to do a significant improvements to this house in the city of Medina at 44 Circle Drive. Emergency clause is requested in order to have all the work completed to the house by the end of this month, so that we can have it paid for with the current grant. And also to be able to pay the contractors right away, because we are pretty much getting ready to implement the new grant, the new CHIP grant, which we just were awarded in September, and hope to get ramped up here real soon. So that's about it. Thank you.
Questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 18178, amend salaries and benefits code to convert part-time ED marketing associate to full-time economic development and marketing manager. Kimberly?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to convert our part-time economic development marketing associate position to full-time economic development and marketing manager position. We had originally brought this forth back in March, and council had some concerns with regard to the title as well as requesting to have it go through a budget hearing first, which our budget hearing was not until September, so that was held about a month ago, where we discussed funding for the position out of carry forward dollars, and also had to go through the civil service, which they met on October 3rd, and they had approved the request. And the change that would not take effect until January 1 of 2019 would be a pay grade 110 with starting salary of a little over $45,000. And we'd also talked about using carry forward money and then possibly using the JED fund, the 143, as a backup funding source if needed in the future. This additionally would be a mayoral appointment, as this would be an exempt position.
Correct. As an exempt position, my understanding is it doesn't have the steps. So you're just picking a pay grade, and it'll just get the COLA increases if we have COLA increases.
So we picked the pay grade to match the 9A where she is now, and just multiplied it times the 2,080. The Civil Service Commission approved the job description and all the related things. They were not interested in the request to have a little asterisk there saying that it will be reviewed on Barbara's retirement, because they didn't feel they had any say in it, because it's a mayoral appointment and not a civil service, which is something I didn't think about when we brought it down to ask them that. So I do know, as long as I'm here, that, you know, and Kimberly knows, if this position vacates, then we'll come back and discuss
Where they
whether the
keep it.
need continues to exist or, but the Civil Service Commission has no control over the, or oversight over the exempt positions that I direct, so.
And currently, remember, this position is not in the budget, 5-year budget, nor will it be. It's just going to be paid out of carry forward funds, and she requested to look at the JED funds at that time, once the carry forward funds are exhausted.
Yes, sir.
So that's where we're at. And my position is, carry forward funds could be used by the departments for whatever they want. If they use it all, they can't come back and say, well, we use it, I want more. I would say, I'm sorry. Any other questions?
I do have one comment. I would feel more comfortable if there was something of record with this particular position, that when it's vacated for whatever reason, it's reviewed to see if the need still exists and whether it needs to be filled again.
Well, we did something with that with the lieutenant's position, I think.
Right. Every time we've done it before, we did it with Ron Stoller's position, we did it with Bob Starcher's position. The difference with each and every one of those is they were civil service positions, whereas the exempt positions are not civil service, and civil service doesn't have any ability to put something in the payroll code for something they don't control.
But as mayor, do you, as an administrative type note?
Yeah, I have the administrative note. I got it, Kimberly's got it, I know what you want.
All right.
It's just.
Barb's still here and everybody's gone to Florida.
Nobody will know. I mean, I guess what you're asking is, can there be something put in the adoption of this position that says that, what you're telling me is that if Barbara leaves, it automatically terminates, the position will terminate. Is that what you're saying?
Right, or we look at it again
We'll
and say, do
come
we
back to
still
council to
need?
decide, do we need full-time or part-time?
Right.
Is what we're talking
Or at
about.
all.
Couldn't you just not fund it?
We put it in the ordinance.
Ordinance, you could put a line.
It has to be reviewed upon current position being vacated, go back to council to be reviewed. That's right. Right time. I think
That's
they're-
official.
I think they're okay with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
And then there's a record of it.
Correct,
that you're
that's
looking
all.
for.
Because,
Right.
you know,
Because you're right, we're all not gonna be here forever.
Right.
I don't know about Barbara, but the rest of us.
Barbara might be, we won't.
Any other questions?
I just want to point out, when we talked about this last time, there were a couple things I was asked to do. We did determine that she wouldn't have to take the health care. And we also determined if it was gonna be at 9, you wouldn't have to have a raise going into it. So I did that comparison based on 9, but I know you weren't happy with that, so we switched over to this 110
Right.
thing, but that's no longer applicable because
Right.
of that change.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 18179, RFPs for drug screen and related professional services. Who's this? Mayor?
So we do this once a year. We have a couple different companies in town that generally bid on it. And just out of fairness to all of them, once a year, we reopen it for bids.
Mhm.
Our current contract expires in December, so we don't need the emergency clause, just the authorization to solicit requests for proposal.
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 18180, state bid purchase for a 2018 Case Super N loader backhoe for the water department. Must be a nice one.
It is. Thank you, Mr. President. So, state bid is $118,247. With the discount, the price comes to $74,495. And as you can see from the cut sheet, there were some additives that we must have with the unit. The total price is $92,456. They're giving a trade-in on our current 2003 Super M of $22,000, so the final price, as stated, is $70,456. The price, when we bought the 2003, I looked it up, was $76,000 15 years ago, so that's cheaper than what we paid back in the day. This unit served the city well. It's rusted out. We did send our loader that's at the garage for sandblasting and painting. That was something they could work on. This unit is completely rusted out. They actually have sign blanks on the floor to cover the holes. So it's served the city well, and it's time to trade it in.
John, I just mentioned for the council's benefit that if we would try to take something like this to the auction, 22,000 would be done. Anything we get anywhere near, we might get $100, couple $100.
Right.
They usually give you pennies on the dollar, so the fact that they were willing to take that amount for the trade helped us immensely and got more value for the city. Good negotiations by me.
Well, what color is it gonna be?
Construction yellow, right?
Orange is what they are.
Oh, I
I think it's a pretty good deal for trade-in.
Yeah.
That's a great deal, I think, for
It
trade-in.
is,
Yeah.
considering.
Good job, you.
Good job. Move to approve.
Second.
Any other comments for Nino?
Good job.
No. Besides that? No.
Well,
All
I
in favor?
didn't, only reason I said, because I knew he was gonna say something.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, 181, amending ordinance 12417 and salaries and benefits code for the intensive supervision probation grant. Anybody here from the municipal court? Oh.
This does come up every year. Because they keep.
Yeah,
They wait till
the
they.
grant is on the state's budget year, so that's why they end up having their raises at mid-year. And the way the timing works with the state, we never get the information until well after, so my office has to do a retro, which we're thrilled with, because that's lots of fun, but.
Yeah.
So that's why we have the emergency clause on too. Sooner the
Because we'd
better.
like to get that retro done as soon as we can before we get into year end and everything else we have to do, so.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second with an emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else need to come before finance? Okay, give me something.
We're gonna go into executive session. I'll make a motion to go into executive session at 6:34 PM for the purpose of considering the purchase of property for public purpose, because premature disclosure would give an unfair competitive bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest.
Second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lamb,
Yes.
Karen Kane.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Hubbard.
We'll be recessing into executive session to discuss what Jim talked about, and then we'll reconvene, and we'll be taking no action.
Everybody else included?
Oh, I'm sorry, is anybody else included? I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Should be the mayor.
The mayor and law director,
Law
or
director.
to include the mayor and law director?
Okay, and we will not be taking no action from the items discussed in executive session, and we'll reconvene finance and adjourn from finance and go to council. With that, we are in recess.